Okay, let's unpack this. Most of us, we're familiar with the idea, the moment of death, feeling
Mm.
like you're leaving the body, maybe that journey down a tunnel towards a bright light, seeing loved ones who've passed.
Yeah, it's a really common narrative, shows up everywhere, different cultures, and definitely in NDE's near-death experiences.
It sounds, well, it sounds like peace, doesn't it? Like going home.
That image is incredibly powerful, so
Yeah.
deeply woven into how we think about what happens next.
Absolutely. But the audio source we're diving into today, it takes that familiar picture and just flips the script entirely. It presents a really provocative and, yeah, potentially challenging view.
A very challenging view.
Because this source, it puts forward this core kind of controversial claim right from the get-go.
Right, that the tunnel of light isn't necessarily this benevolent passage, not a loving homecoming at all.
According to this perspective, it's something else entirely, part
Yeah.
of a system,
Yeah, the phrase used is pretty stark. Soul harvester.
a soul harvester. Wow. And this system, the source claims, is designed specifically to, like, recycle your soul and the energy from your body.
Exactly. Back into this reality, this three-dimensional reality we're in now, through reincarnation.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to really dig into what this one source is claiming. We need to unpack its, let's say, highly unconventional take on reincarnation.
Look at who or what it suggests might be involved, why it thinks this cycle happens.
And crucially, how this specific source claims you might actually be able to, well, opt out.
Get ready to question some fundamental assumptions, yeah.
Let's jump right in then. The source actually starts by acknowledging those common elements we see in NDE accounts.
Right, it doesn't ignore them. It points out that pattern, leaving the body, the tunnel, the white light.
Seeing beings, angels, guides, sometimes friends, family.
Life review, that's a big one. And then eventually being sent back to Earth.
And it highlights that feeling, the one that seems almost universal in these stories, according to the source.
That the other side feels profoundly like home.
Yeah, and people who experience this, they often have absolutely no desire to return, not to their physical life here. A place this source calls a hellhole. Pretty blunt.
Very blunt. Which sets up the source's big question, right? If it feels so good, so much like home over there.
Then why, according to this source, do we keep getting sent back? Back to a place people in NDEs often don't want to return to.
And that question leads straight into the most challenging idea this source presents, the core hypothesis.
Right. The source basically says that the tunnel of light, the one that seems so appealing, offers reunion with loved ones, this feeling of immense love.
A love described as way beyond anything you feel in 3D reality.
Yeah, that tunnel is actually not what it seems.
It's the soul harvester mechanism we mentioned. The source claims it's specifically designed to keep your soul and the energy from your body locked in this cycle, reincarnating back here.
That's a stark contrast to the usual comfort we associate with it.
Definitely. Now, let's look at the life review, but through this source's lens. It describes it as like panoramic, a 360-degree view of your life.
And here's a really crucial detail the source emphasizes. You don't just see it from your perspective.
No, you see it from the perspective of everyone you met. You feel how you might have hurt someone or brought them happiness. You experience their side of it.
Wow. And the source also notes that during this review, you're often with a being described as like source-like or all-loving.
Yeah, someone who might even laugh with you during the review, sharing the emotions.
But here's the kicker, the contradiction the source really highlights.
This same being, this all-loving presence,
consistently sends people back to 3D reality.
Okay, hold on. That feels like a major point of conflict. If this being is truly all-loving, why send someone back to a place they didn't want to leave when they felt immense peace and love on the other side? Does the source offer an explanation for that?
Well, the source doesn't frame it as a benevolent act, no. It argues that this contradiction, being sent back against your will by an all-loving being, is actually one of the main clues.
A clue that the whole thing isn't what it appears to be.
Exactly. It suggests the love and maybe the guide are part of the mechanism to get you to, well, consent to return.
Which leads us right into the source's skepticism about those spirit guides people often report meeting.
Precisely. The source asks, who are they really? What's their true purpose? Are they maybe representatives of this system?
The system designed to keep us recycling, yeah.
The source even brings in another reference here, something called the Waspenera Papers. Claims they also suggest many guides aren't very keen helpers,
Right, and the claim gets specific. It says many are actually Syrian helpers.
which it describes using its own terms like non-physical vegans and greys, types of non-physical entities.
And the source gives a really clear warning. Be super cautious if they tell you, follow me into the light, or go into the tunnel, or especially go see your relatives.
Because, according to this view, following those guides takes you straight back into what it calls the Syrian recycling system.
Which, the source claims, results in full amnesia before your soul gets sent back to Earth. New body, no memory of before.
Amnesia is absolutely critical here. The source even speculates about how it might happen. Mentions a dream analogy, an elevator-like room.
Yeah, representing the descent back to Earth. And in the dream, the person couldn't remember how to go down.
The source interprets that as maybe being a test. Like, are any memories left? Do we need to wipe them again?
So the memory wipe isn't just passive. It might be an active process to keep the cycle hidden.
But importantly, the source does offer some balance. It does acknowledge that some guides are genuine.
Right, some do apparently volunteer to come into this 3D reality, specifically to help souls break free, to exit the cycle.
Okay, so moving deeper into the source's ideas, it starts talking about technology, possibly playing a role in all this.
Yeah, this brings in the idea of resonance, frequency. It mentions the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural frequency. Says it's historically been around 7.83 hertz.
But claims it's been rising, cites 8.15 hertz recently.
And then it poses this speculative question. What if that tunnel of light operates at a really high frequency, way higher than Earth's? Thousands, maybe millions of hertz?
Okay. And how does that connect?
It links back to those grays, the Syrian helpers. What if they are somehow immune to Earth's resonance? Or maybe they're programmed or using tech to appear as friendly guides.
The claim here is pretty out there, that they use technologies beyond our comprehension, especially right at the moment of death.
To do what? Wipe memories and create an artificial program.
A program designed specifically to induce that intense feeling of love and trust we talked about.
So the idea is this overwhelming love, seeing loved ones, it might not be real, just a tech-induced illusion.
That's exactly what the source claims. It says that feeling of love, in this context, is ultimately not loving.
It calls it just another artificial system of control, designed to keep souls trapped. And get this, the system apparently feeds on negative energy.
Feeds on negative energy. That's a chilling thought.
It is. Let's look at past life regression now, through the source's lens. He uses observations from therapy to kind of bolster its claims.
Right. The source notes that memories from past lives seem stored, maybe in our DNA or soul, but we can't easily access them normally.
And it points out something it finds odd. Under hypnosis, people can recall tiny details from centuries ago.
But in daily life, you might struggle to remember what you had for breakfast yesterday.
Exactly. It asks why the discrepancy. Suggests it's strange. It also brings up that common thing people report in regressions.
Incarnating with the same cast of characters, soul groups.
Yeah, cycle after cycle, posing that as maybe another sign that this is all part of some structured system.
Which brings us to the source's explanation for why. Why would this elaborate system exist? And this is where the term Archon comes in.
According to this source, the whole setup is a brilliant strategy orchestrated by the Archons. Now, the source doesn't fully define Archons here.
But it positions them as the architects, the controllers of this system.
Pretty much. And their supposed method is, well, deeply unsettling, using the energy of love against us.
Weaponizing love itself to lure souls back in.
That's the claim. And the purpose, according to the source, to keep us coming back here, serving as economic slaves.
Wow. Economic slaves. What does the source mean by that exactly? Is it literal?
Not in the sense of money after death, no. It seems to frame it more like our very existence here, our struggles, our emotions, the energy we generate, good or bad, that becomes like fuel, sustenance.
For this alleged system and its Archon controllers, our lives here feed them.
Yeah. The source makes a really strong, sweeping statement here. And again, we're just reporting the claim. Just about everything we have been taught is a lie, including why we need to constantly incarnate into a system of economic subservience.
It's a huge claim, and it follows it with that quote, as above, so below.
Implying this pattern might exist on multiple levels, not just our physical world.
Okay, so given this really intense picture, the absolutely crucial question the source has to tackle is, how do you get out? How do you exit this claimed reincarnation trap?
Right. And it offers very specific practical advice. For the moment of death itself, It claims that simply knowing this information, having this knowledge when you die,
Yeah.
that's the main key.
Knowledge is the escape route. And it warns specifically, don't get persuaded back by any counsel saying you owe negative karmic debts.
The source argues that any perceived debt was actually part of what your soul chose to experience for growth anyway.
Though it does add a note, this isn't a free pass to hurt people. Love and respect are still vital in life.
Definitely. The advice is connect with your oversoul. Think of it as maybe a higher part of you, outside this system, before you go into any tunnel.
Or if you have a genuinely trusted guide, ask them to help you make that connection.
And, the source adds, if you can, in that moment. Try to warn others you might see there about the tunnel before they go in.
Okay, but what if you do decide you want to return? Maybe to help Earth. Does the source have advice for that?
It does. If you choose to come back, the source says it's vital. Do not agree to return under the control of this system. Don't sign a soul contract with it.
Instead, come back on your own terms.
Exactly. That means keeping your memories, remembering past lives, what you learned on the other side.
The source mentions maybe considering a fifth-dimensional version of Earth.
But with a huge caveat, only if you are absolutely sure it's not still under the control of this archaic system. Be certain.
Another option it presents, come back as a non-physical guide yourself to the old 3D system to help others find their way out.
Ultimately, the source defines real peace, real freedom, as realizing you are source creator, recognizing your own power to create harmonious worlds, galaxies filled with genuine love outside this described system.
To kind of wrap up its argument, the source points to pop culture, says there's truth hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, uses an analogy from Star Trek Voyager, an episode called Cathexis.
Okay, how does that work?
It summarizes the plot. Captain Janeway has an NDE, sees her father's ghost telling her to accept death, let go.
But she refuses, instinctively knows it's not her time, then sees visions of her crew trying to revive her physical body.
And realizes the afterlife stuff is a hallucination. Then an alien being appears.
Claims he helps the dying, says the place can look like whatever she wants, uses her dad's form to make it less scary.
But Janeway, in the show, gets suspicious, asks him, what do you really want?
And this is the part the source highlights.
Exactly. The alien admits he can't force her. He needs her to voluntarily agree to go with him to his matrix.
Which she refuses to do.
Right, and the source points out the alien gets mad, admits he needs her to come willingly to nourish him in his matrix.
And his final warning as she resists, there will be another time. Like he'll wait for another chance.
So the source presents this whole episode, the friendly face, hiding a need for consent, entering a system that feeds on you as a direct parallel. A fictional mirror of its own claims about soul harvesting and the absolute importance of conscious choice, refusing consent.
So let's try and synthesize all these, well, really striking claims from the source. The familiar tunnel of light, reframed as a potential trap.
Guides, not always benevolent, some depicted as agents of a recycling system.
Memories actively erased, possibly using technology. All part of an alleged Archon strategy.
Using life's energy, especially negative energy, keeping us in economic subservience here.
Yet, within that kind of bleak picture, the source offers what it sees as a path out.
Knowledge is key. Conscious choice at death. Refusing external karmic obligations. Connecting to your higher self or a true guide.
And choosing your own terms if you return, or just opting out completely to create elsewhere.
It's definitely one very specific, very challenging perspective presented in this source material. Ask you to question some really deep-seated beliefs about death, the afterlife, everything.
And the message running through it all seems to be about awareness. Question things. Trust your gut, your intuition, more than external voices that don't feel right.
And recognizing that having this specific knowledge, according to this source, is potentially your key to freedom, your leverage.
Wow, okay. What a deep dive that was. From the familiar, comforting tunnel of light
to this idea of a complex, maybe technological soul recycling system designed for control.
And then exploring this dramatic conscious escape plan the source proposes.
It definitely reframes the stakes, doesn't it? What might be happening in that final moment.
And the core instruction from this source couldn't be clearer. Having this knowledge at the moment of death is supposedly everything. Your conscious choice holds immense power.
Right. So considering the source's incredibly strong statement, that just about everything we've been taught is a lie, including why we might keep reincarnating.
What fundamental beliefs might you, the listener, feel compelled to re-examine after hearing such a provocative claim?
It certainly gives you a lot to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.